Hello everybody, welcome to book 4. Today we'll be talking about parts per million. This is a measurement for concentration that we use when the thing we're measuring is very, very, very dilute. So for example, right, we're not meant to have lead in the water, but when we do, it's meant to be a very, very small amount. Okay, so if we use the normal, if you remember, the concentration we usually use is we can use per weight. Okay, percentage weight. So that's the weight of the solute over the weight of the solvent. Okay, we can't really use that when it comes to, for example, lead in the water, just because the number will be so small, we will need to write a bunch of zeros. So what we do in this case is we do what's called a parts per million calculation. And what that is basically, um, well, let's think of it this way, right? So the formula goes like this. So parts per million equals solute in milligrams over the solvent in liters. Okay, because the solvent is usually water, so we say liters slash kilograms, both work. Okay, reason we do this is let's think about it. How do we go from milligrams to kilograms? How do we go from the unit of the solute to the unit of the solvent? Well, let's go milligrams to grams first. That's times 1,000. Then grams to kilograms. That's times 1,000 again, isn't it? So altogether, milligrams to kilogram, there's a 1 million difference, right? 1 million. Okay, that's why I call it parts per million. If we have 1 ppm, 1 ppm is going to be equal to 1 milligram of solute over 1 kilogram of solvent. Okay, so that means per million parts, only one part is the solute. So that's why we call it parts per million. All right, now in terms of how to actually do the calculation, all we need to do is to convert the solute into milligrams and then the solvent into kilograms. So for this question, we need to find the solute is sugar, so 0.3 grams. Okay, how do we turn that into milligrams? We times 1,000. Okay, so 0.3 grams equals 300 milligrams. What about water? 600 milliliters. If you remember, 1 milliliter equals 1 milligram. Okay, so 600 milliliters of water is going to be 0.6. We can either call it liters or we can call it 0.6 kilograms. Okay, so now the parts per million calculation would go like this, right? So concentration in parts per million would go 300 divided by 0.6. All right, so that's 3,000 over 6, so that's 500 parts per million. Let's do one more question. So for this question, we have a 250 milliliter sample of drinking water is found to contain this much lead. Okay, so lead in water, like I was saying before. What is the concentration in parts per million? Okay, same thing. Let's first convert the solute into milligrams. This way you can do it by yourself. So what's 0.003 grams to milligrams? What do we do? That's right, we're times by 1,000. Okay, so 0.003 times 1,000. If you can't do that in your head, use a calculator, but that's going to give you exactly 3 milligrams. All right, now let's convert 250 milliliters into liters, right? Liters slash kilograms, same thing. So 250 milliliters is going to be 0.25 liters, okay? Or we can call it 0.25 kilograms. So putting these all together, the concentration in parts per million would be 3 milligrams for the solute over 0.25 kilograms for the solvent. Okay, this is in milligrams, this is in kilograms. Okay, so what do we get? We get 3 divided by 0.25. That's the same thing as 3 times 4. So it's 12 parts per million. All right, so that's how you do these parts per million questions. They shouldn't be too difficult once you understand how to do them.